years in Timor-Leste.
Yeah.
That was really, it was challenging.
Why was you over there for 8 years?
Initially I was doing work with programs for HIV.
Yeah.
And then when that finished, I got offered a job managing a big clinic where a lot of the patients that I knew from the HIV or the TB programs, they would go to that clinic for their treatments. So,
do you want to explain a bit more what HIV is?
Human immunodeficiency virus.
Right. And what does it do?
Basically, if you get it into your system, it attacks your immunity.
Yeah.
So, specifically, it's the way I used to describe it was like, do you remember Pac-Man?
Oh yeah.
Well, it had come along, and here's your immune defences, which they call the CD4 cells.
Yeah.
And it's munching through them.
So it just eats them.
Yeah. So then you might get something that normally, if you were healthy, you could throw off, like a bad cold or something.
Yeah.
But it would knock you off your feet, and it's particularly difficult for people in countries where tuberculosis is endemic. TB, yeah. So if someone's got exposure to TB and they're also HIV positive, they've got no chance of trying to fight it. So it can be really, it can kill. It can kill. You don't die of HIV, but if you don't manage the HIV virus, which you can do with drugs, if you can't get the HIV virus to reduce in your system, and your body can't keep up with making more immune cells, then eventually you get a collection of illnesses, some of which can be fatal to you. And that's when they start to talk about AIDS, which is acquired immunodeficiency syndrome.
Right, okay.
And the syndrome is the collection of illnesses that people can acquire because they haven't got the immunity to be able to bounce them off.
So is AIDS like a further progression of HIV?
It can be if you haven't managed the HIV. And the sad thing is a lot of people have HIV and they don't realise it.
Yeah.
And it can be quietly destructive over time. And the first time that a lot of people know about it is when they become seriously ill with something that normal circumstances other people might be able to fight off.
Yeah.
HIV.
Yeah.
Well, it's a blood-borne virus.
Yeah.
So you get it through passing blood or semen from one person to another.
Yeah.
So typically people who share injecting equipment when they're injecting drugs.
Yeah.
People who are having sex with people who are HIV positive can be at risk.
Yeah.
And it can pass from mother to child through the placenta.
Right.
So you can give birth to a child
with
HIV if you're an HIV positive mother. But I guess I have to say a lot of what we were doing was trying to promote, well, like a three-pronged attack really. Encourage people to understand what HIV is.
Yeah.
Then advise people how they could prevent getting HIV, typically through using a condom.
Yeah.
Through getting tested so that they know their status, so they know what the risk factors are to their partners or to their unborn children.
Yeah, or potentially to other people.
Or to other people, yeah. And to encourage them to access treatment services, because if people that take antiretroviral medication, it can actually reduce the virus in the system to the point where it's not measurable.
Right.
And that's reducing the chance that you can pass it on.
Right.
So the antiretroviral medication works by stopping the reproduction of the virus.
Oh, right, okay.
So when it's living in your system, it's, as I used to say, it's like it's having loads of babies.
Yeah. And it's expanded.
And it's growing the population of the virus in your system.
Yeah.
And all of those babies are then going to go munching on your immunity as well.
And create new babies.
And they'll create their own new babies. But if you can interrupt that reproduction or replication, then eventually the ones that are already living there are going to pass away.
Oh, right. Yeah, because eventually a cell has
a lifespan.
Yeah.
And so when that virus passes away and it's not been able to replicate, that's when we can see the results of, reducing the viral load to undetectable. And that really seriously reduces the chance of passing it on.
Can you still pass it on even if it is
undetectable?
Yeah.
It's unlikely. As long as you keep taking your medication, you've got to take the medication. I can't stress that enough.
Yeah, yeah.
And you've got to take it rigorously at the same time every day.
Right.
Which, in a developing country where people don't have watches, some people don't have English as the first language, so explaining can be quite tricky.
And difficult, yeah.
So I've worked with some amazing doctors who do things like drawing a sun and a moon on the medication packet. So you have to take one in the morning and one at night. So that people understand, or one at morning and one at night, and then a little dinner plate with a knife and fork or some chopsticks.
So to have it with your dinner sort
to have it in the middle of the day as well.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, that's really interesting.
Yeah, you've just got to make sure people understand, and the quickest way you can do that is by educating the workforce.
Yeah.
And that was what I was doing. I wasn't in charge of looking after people, and I was there to build the capacity of local people, because they can use their own language, they can use their own examples that are culturally understood.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was quite challenging in itself, wasn't it?
Yeah, well, it is. And, having lived there 8 years, I understand quite a bit about the country and its culture, but I'm not an expert.
Yeah. You can understand,
I have, I kept thinking, I've got it now, I've got it. And, I've been here 4 months now, and I think I understand it. And then something had happened, and I think, I don't understand anything. I don't know what I'm even doing here. And then I'd get, oh yeah, right, now I understand why that works like that now. Okay, so I've got it. And then a few weeks later, something else had happened that goes, actually, you're very ignorant of how we live.
Yeah.
And I just had to keep on relearning and relearning.
So it was a constant learning.
I think the biggest challenge, though, was overcoming stigma and discrimination, because people didn't understand what it was, and they kept hearing about it being, in their language, it translated into that bad disease.
Yeah.
And then it turned into bad people.
Right, yeah.
And then people got frightened. And there was also quite a strong belief in spirits punishing you and things like that. So,
like possessions and satanic stuff.
Yeah, but the community could be quite cruel to people. So people were very reluctant to expose themselves
because it was
or to ask for tests.
Yeah.
because if they got the test, then they might get... I did know one or two people who'd had things happen, like they'd been stoned out of the house, and made to move to a different part of the city where nobody knew them.
Yeah.
Or threatened, you know, with violence.
Yeah. Like move, otherwise we're going to get...
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not nice on people either,
no.
is it? Yeah.
But, or lose their jobs.
Right.
Yeah.
So, yeah, people actually thought...
People had refused...
discriminated them that much.
Yeah, or they'd refuse to eat with you.
Right.
They'd refuse to let you use cutlery or plates that had been... touched by you. They used to... I know one or two people who'd been for meals with people, and then when they realise their status, they've gone and thrown the plates out.
Wow.
Because they're afraid. Or, you know, using the same bathroom.
Right.
Well, none of those things transmit HIV, but people were scared of getting the bad disease. Yeah.
So you've spoken a little bit about HIV and how it can turn into AIDS. What is TB?
Microbacterium tuberculosis.
Right, okay. And what does that do to your body?
It usually starts in the lungs.
Right.
So you inhale the microbacterium.
Yeah.
And they take up residence and spread in your lungs.
Right.
And you'll get symptoms like night sweats, fevers, cough, persistent cough.
Right.
Very common in developing countries where people are living in close proximity to each other. So crowded household. It's kind of slightly less common in the UK than it used to be. But in the old days, you know, when you read in old novels, like one of the Brontes, Bramwell, their brother, he went into a decline. It's usually because they might have had TB.
Right.
So you'd go into a decline. However, there are some people who are strong enough to fight it off. And what happens then is it kind of encapsulates, puts a little shell around itself.
Right.
And it sits there hiding.
Like dormant.
Yeah.
In your body.
And then if you become poorly and your immune system's challenged, it can go, here we go.
Now's my chance to attack.
And it might pop up somewhere else. And that's when they call it secondary TB.
Right.
So it might come up as a skin condition, or it might go into the bones, or it might go into the eyes. So it can
so
come
it can
up.
actually go into different parts of the body as well.
Yeah.
And what does it do? Just deteriorate that, like your bones or?
Yeah. If you go into like some museums I've been into where they've got skeletons of, say, Roman soldiers or something, sometimes the joints are deformed, but sometimes you can see, and it's evidence that they've had TB.
Like little pockets.
Yeah, it can go and like decay the bone, or you can end up with lesions on the skin.
Right.
Or I've seen one lady who had it all over her face, poor lass.
Oh.
And it was like angry pustules all over her face.
Wow.
And she had a little girl, and because she'd been kissing a child, the child had it as well. Oh. But with treatment, you know, it takes a long time. You have to take the treatment for a long time, but you can
eat it.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
But it does take a lot of work, and you've got to be really dedicated to taking the medication.